Good afternoon, sir. I think we can start the session and student will keep joining meanwhile. We have around 32 students, so they will be joining and we can start. Very good evening, everyone. I welcome you all to the 15th session of the Consti class. Today's agenda for discussion is democracy, majoritarianism, and crisis for freedom. And to discuss the topic, we have with us Sanjit sir. I, for those who have already attended yesterday's session, you are aware about the Sanjit sir and his profile. Those who were not there, I once again introduce you. Sir is assistant professor at NUJS, and sir has been in academics life since 2005. So he has more than 15, 17 years of experience, and we will hopefully we will get to know about the topic and everything we have. Meanwhile, if you have any question, you seek any clarification, please use chat box and anytime sir will entertain your doubt and session. Once again, I welcome you, sir, on behalf of the society, and I request you to make your presentation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Gautam. I think I'm audible very much.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Am I audible? Okay. I have now no problem if you turn on your camera. I have no problem. Okay. And as I said earlier, also, if you have any question, if you have any query, you feel free to ask me as and when you want to ask. Okay. Now, actually, I have not prepared any PPT or the slide because the topic is of such a nature that we can discuss it from the different dimension. We can have the different approach, having different opinion on that particular topic. And today's topic is democracy and majoritarianism and the crisis of democracy. Now, all these terms, I think, because democracy itself is a term oftenly used to describe or to formulate the idea of majoritarianism or concept of governance, or the government or the particular state mechanism is being governed by the majority. And obviously it is majority not as per the number, rather from the notional idea, it is the majority of the people who belongs to a particular political ideology. Now, as I mentioned that this particular topic, it becomes quite of our day-to-day discussion. It has become a subject matter of day-to-day discussion. Rather, I must say that the discussion becomes much more prominent after 2014. That is 2014 general election, because I don't know, what should I say, that according to some people, that the way a political party named Bharatiya Janata Party came into power in the year 2014 and subsequently another time, according to some people, they thought, rather they apprehending, or they are very much apprehensive that maybe in India the democracy is in danger, and now we are moving towards so-called majoritarianism. Even some people are very much adventurous. They termed it as an Hindu majoritarianism, etc., etc. Now, in the present discussion, though I will try to limit myself from the academic viewpoint, but in order to substantiate my argument, in order to give you sort of practical example, I may refer some political activities by different political parties. Please don't take it otherwise. Take it as as an academic discussion, as a part of an academic discussion. I'm not, rather, it is not my intention to propagate any political ideology here in front of you. Now, before I start, I will be much more happy if you can, give me some clue, or if from the topic itself, because the topic is beforehand. That means you are very much aware about the topic. Any one of you, can you tell me that whenever you see this particular topic, or whenever you saw this particular topic, what immediately comes to your mind? What are the problem? If it is a problem, for example, if we say that the democracy, obviously all of us little bit we know about the democracy. It is by the people, for the people. Long back we are discussing all these things, and by virtue of the constitutional provision, India is a democratic country. Okay, theoretically it is a democratic country, and basically as an academician we have our task. It is our noble task to examine how the democracy is working, its actual situation, or at the working place. So obviously we will discuss this particular point. At the same time, democracy, it always, in a democracy, it is always the majority which rules. Okay, and the minority, maybe the minority's voice, according to some people, they remains unheard. So democracy, it is or the majoritarianism, democracy or majoritarianism, it is this, both this terminology, it is being used as interchangeably. Now, even if we take the literal meaning, because democracy, it has some sort of academic connotation, it has some sort of notional aspect. Okay, now for the argument's sake, if we don't take the word democracy, rather we look into the literal meaning of the majoritarianism. That means it is the majority which are ruling, or it is the majority of the people which are ruling. Then according to you people, what are the crises or what are the challenges to the democracy itself? Can you give me any idea? Whatever comes to your mind, you need not to be correct. Any one of you, please. The sessions must be a little bit interactive. I want to listen from you people also, because this type of academic discussion can't be, and it should not be the one-way traffic. Any one of you, whenever you saw this particular topic, what comes to your mind immediately? Any one of you? Yeah. Any one of you, you can turn on your mic, you can turn on your video. I have no problem, unless the the moderator or your technology permits. You just turn on your mic and ask me the question.
Yeah, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Sir, as you said that like the problem in democracy, that when we talk about people choosing their representatives in democracy, so we talk about
Yeah.
one person, one vote and things. But what actually happens, what problem, like according to me, is that if we talk about one person, one vote, then how come the majority people vote is counted and the minority, like in every case, even in companies as we study, that always the majority rules and minority, they are squeezed out. So in that, even in democracy as well, if we talk about one person, one vote, then many people, like their vote is not counted in that sense, because it's the majority at last that is choosing the representative.
Okay.
So according to me, this can be crisis for this.
Okay. Thank you, Muskan. I think for your question. But let me tell you, you cited, mentioned about the company law also. Even there is one particular topic in your company law, that is under the Companies Act. The protection of the minority shareholders is also very important. First versus Harberton rule, majority rights and minority protection. Okay, obviously, one person, one vote, one person, one vote. By way of that, we ensured political justice. But what will happen? For example, from the Indian context, out of 10 people, okay, just look at the scenario, that try to understand the problem, that out of 10 people, 7% belongs to a particular community. Okay, I'm not using the term religion. Now, they are belonging to a particular religion, and there is a possibility that the 7%, okay, irrespective of their individual differences, okay, because of their belonging to a particular community, they may agree to a particular point, a particular ideology, political ideology. Okay, because I don't know how many of you have gone through this, the available literature on this particular topic. Most of the writings, or most of the what to say, that is the research paper, or what to say, or the article, or the commentaries. Out of that, the majority of a piece of literature are written by the person or the individuals belonging to the left ideology. Okay. Now, my question is, try to understand that if out of 10, that means the 70%, if roughly estimated that the 70% of the Indian population, they are Hindu. Okay, and because they are Hindu, if they support the agenda of a Hindu religious party or a right-wing party, okay, in that case, what will happen? That 30%, whether these 30% people, their voice, will their voice remain unheard for entire time? This is a question. Actually, I think your question is why we are discussing about the majoritarianism, because it is the majority. Actually, in relation to democracy, first of all, let me tell you that it has been rightly said that democracy is not the best form of government, but the others are worst. Okay, democracy is not the good one. Okay, because in case of a democracy, in case of a majority, it is highly possible that some people, their desire, their want, or their wish, it will always remain unheard. Okay, they may feel somehow isolated, or they may feel that they are not being taken into consideration while making any decision. Now, actually, as mentioned, by different authors, even I was going through the article written in the year 1978, okay, the working of democratic constitution. Okay, this is one of the article. It was published in the Journal of Political Science, and there obviously, it is mentioned that when we entered into some sort of modern state, okay, or whenever we try to form some sort of government, then the political structure must be created. Now, without having a political structure, how a new state will work? This is a problem. Try to understand that before getting independence, we were ruled by the English people for about 200 years. Okay, the British people came here in the name of doing business, that is the East India Company, and ultimately became the power holder. Sovereignty concept lies with them. I saw, I can see that is Raghav, he wrote that according to preamble, constitution derive their power from the word we the people. Here we means each and every person of the country, but we in democracy are only talking about the majority. Somehow, if such majority for any custom uses, that may be correct for them, but it may change. Such practice may violate the constitution. So here the constitution itself gives power to majority to rule under democracy. So there is a contradiction created. Yes, I agree to that to some extent, and perhaps that is why we we will try to find out the embedded idea of democracy. Because democracy, though the term democracy and majoritarianism these are being used quite interchangeably, but there is a difference between majoritarianism and democracy. In lucid sense, democracy is it is a sacrosanct idea. Okay, there are some sort of embedded ideology within itself. Whereas majoritarianism, you can follow the literal meaning, without looking into the embedded idealism or the embedded philosophy in it. So this is one of the aspects. This is one of the aspects. One person, one vote. This is only a step towards ensuring political justice. But this is not all about the constitutionalism. This is not all about the constitutionalism, or this is not all about the democracy. Now, with this introductory point, let me enter into the discussion. Now, if you look into the literal meaning, that the democracy, as I have already mentioned, that democracy is a form of government. When the citizen exercise their power directly, or elect representatives on behalf of them among from themselves, okay, to form a government body such as a parliament. Okay, that is the legislative body. Yesterday, I mentioned this particular point, that the constitution, okay, it is given by the person, with the people of India. Even in Keshavanand Bharati, there is a very nice line that it is a notion. It is a notion that the constitution gave by with the people of India, and the authority of that documents, it cannot be challenged in any court of law. Okay, it was mentioned in Keshavananda Bharati versus the State of Kerala case. Now, when we say that democracy is a system of government, and obviously we are talking about the political system, just try to understand. At any point of time, if you have any confusion, if you need any clarification, please stop me. That we are talking about a political system. That is we need a political system, because without having a political system, meaning the normative society, okay, or carrying out the objectives of a welfare state will be very much difficult. Now, this democratic form of government, if we look into this, the democratic form of government, then it is also referred as the rule of the majority. Okay, because what happened, we have a multi-party system. Okay, and our constitution, it provides the parliamentary form of government. That means the people's representatives are elected. Now, people's representatives are elected on the basis of their political ideology. Though there is a slogan that elect the good people, not the party, but in Indian context, the problem is that we actually, without looking into the background of the individual who contested the election, we look into the party belongings, okay, the affiliation, in with which political party he or she is affiliated. Now, here actually the particular thing is that the representative with the most number of votes, that means, for example, if political party A and most number of representatives belongs to political party A, then obviously they will form the government, okay, that politically established government, and ultimately they will exercise the power. Obviously this power is powers are to be exercised as per the constitution, because the constitutionalism demands that. Now, if we look into the history of the idea of democracy, actually, it was came back, that is the Greek political and philosophical thought, in Athens, okay, during the classical antiquity. And the democracy, it derives from the Greek word that is the demos, that is the common people, demos, demos, that is the common people, quote unquote common people, and kratos, that means the strength, that means it is the strength of the common people. It is the strength of the common people, and it was established, in during the period of 508 to sorry, yeah, 508 to 507 of BC by the Athens, and it was uh, uh, quite at the time of this particular idea, that political idea of the democracy, it was it received a very wide support, or I must say that it was the idea of the democracy. It was welcomed by the people of Athens, and it was working very well. Now, if we look into theoretically, that is, if we look into the aspect, the different aspect, that how the democracy works, if we look into this particular aspect, then it is the embedded idea that in a democracy, all members of the society must be equal. Am I clear? That in a democracy, all the members of the society must be equal. And the equality, though at the initial level, uh, most of the authors or the propounder or the jurist to the idea of democracy, they focused mainly on the equal voting rights. That means equality must be present in the individual. Okay, and that is why the idea of democracy denies the idea groups, the group's right to vote. That means as an individual you have the right to vote, okay, and the vote of each individual, it will carry the equal value, okay, the equal value. Now, democracy in India, if we look into that particular aspect, that India is a democratic nation, okay, and it has been claimed, and we claimed that it is the largest democracy. However, there is any fallout to that democracy or not, I will enter into that discussion a little later. But yes, we are the world's largest democracy. Now, in order to ensure democracy, actually what we did, by virtue of the constitution, by constitution, obviously there are some other legislation also. For example, the People's Representation Act, and as a constitutional principles, the constitution gives all the citizens the right, okay, to cast their vote, to elect their leaders. Okay, here I should not use the term leader, rather to elect their representatives. Okay, and this voting right, which has been given to all the Indian citizens, it has been given irrespective of their caste, color, creed, sex, religion, etc., etc. Now, why this particular right has been given? Okay, or why this right to participate in the democracy has been given? If if you think, or rather, if you can, imagine, okay, that by virtue of the constitution, actually we promised, or certain principles, that is the sovereign, socialist, and secular. Though particularly these two, have been inserted later, but ultimately it is very much part and parcel of the preamble of the Indian Constitution. But the sovereign, socialist, secular, democratic, and republic. Now, if we can understand the very basic thing, that is that what is democracy and how the democracy has been incorporated, or the principles of democracy has been incorporated in the Indian context, then we may ask some other question, that is there any test, or is there any measuring rod, to determine that how the democracy is working? Is there any measuring rod, or is there any testing mechanism? What is your opinion? Do we have any such mechanism? Any one of you? Do we have any mechanism? Because many of us today we are saying that sometimes I also say that Indian democracy is not working. It is a very much problematic case. So my question is that, is there any measuring rod, or is there any criteria by which we can measure how the democracy, or the principles of democracy, is working in India? Any one of you? Am I audible? All of you? Hello? Am I audible? Okay, tell me. I'm asking the question. Okay, there is a check and balance. Shubhangi Gupta. No, division of power. Okay. Or any other thing, any measuring rod by which, any other thing? I want to quote, Professor Madhava Menon. I think all of you have heard the name of Professor Madhava Menon. He wrote one article, and it was published in AIR, All India Reporter Journal section, long back. At that time, I was a student of law, doing my LLB. Okay, learning law. The topic was learning law, and in his article, he mentioned that while reading law or trying to understand law, your mind must be open. Okay, because he termed that human mind is just like a parachute. It works well when it is open. So don't be preoccupied with any idea. Okay, try to open up your mind. Okay, try to give input. As I said, you need not to be correct all the times. Okay, rather we have the right and liberty to commit wrong number of times in our life or throughout our life. Okay, so my question is very simple. I'm asking a very simple question. Okay, that is there any measuring rod? Because anyone, or the person who has selected the topic, that is the democracy, majoritarianism, and the crisis of democracy, what may be or what was going in his or her mind, that he pointed out this particular thing, that there is a crisis in democracy? What prompted him to think that this majoritarianism, maybe, which is a weaker version of democracy, is causing some problem? Any idea?
So, Gautam here. I
Yeah,
only
yeah,
found the topic, the agenda for the discussion, and
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
thing I was considering was in relation to the yesterday's topic, and this topic is a follow-up to that. So when I was planning to have two discussion which are more modern context, not totally constitution barrack based. So all the
Well,
13 lectures are barrack based, but last two are current discussion.
okay,
So
okay.
when a new government came to power in 2014, and when this
Yes,
new government retained the power in 2019, so
good,
I don't think that the power which was there in 2014 is a different thing. But when the power again they retained the thing in 2019 with a more thumping majority, and the things
good,
which were matlab, they built a scenario in the people of rational thinking that a particular type of ideology is being forced on you, or a particular narrative is being forced, or you are being told to live with that. So that is where I thought that that this democracy, this brute majority, is being tried to be converted into a majoritarianism. And that is where a democracy, when tries to be converting into a majoritarianism, that is where the whole crisis for democracy starts. And at the
very good.
point you said that is there any mechanism, so the adult franchise which we have allows us to change the government or to retain the government after 5 years. So as such, there are no parameter, but the rational thinking of the people who are eligible to vote and to choose their representative are themselves the parameter which they are thinking. But sir, there is also a catch, as far as my limited knowledge, that if some sort of majoritarianism or particular ideology and people start to relate with that ideology, that mechanism also fails there.
Okay, very good, Gautam. I appreciate your diverse thinking. Yes, I really appreciate the way you have thought. Then it makes my task quite easier. Yes, I absolutely completely agree with you. Um, uh, that the and most of the writings and in the existing literatures, these are very much concerned with what's are happening after 2014 and 2009. Listen, following one particular ideology, it may be the political ideology or the religious ideology, it is not wrong. Okay, and it is permitted under the constitution. Okay, and all of us we have this. But the right to propagate religion, profess, propagate, and practice. Okay, right to practice, profess, and propagate religion or the religious idea or any idea. Obviously, you have this particular right. But when some people feeling some sort of insecurity, or when some people they think that we are being marginalized, we are being marginalized, then it becomes a problem. It becomes a problem. At the same time, let me also make a point here that we can't ignore the fear of the community, of the majority in a particular community, of any future problem. Actually, this is nothing, if we look into the recent incidents, okay, what happened in France, or what is happening in some other areas. It is, I'm not discussing about the Hindu, Muslim, on all these things, but I also ask this question to myself as an academic investigator, that why the people are behaving like in this manner. Because I have also changed, I have also witnessed the change in the mind of my own friend circle. Maybe at one point of time they are very much concerned about the political thought, and they used to examine or test any political party on the basis of political ideology or on the basis of their work. But all of a sudden in the last few years, I have seen these particular changes. When they are ignoring all other things, they are trying to focus on the religious ideology. And therefore this question, and when I try to investigate this question, what I came to know and to which I also agree, that is, if in democracy, if it is not all about the majority, at the same time you can't ignore the fear or the apprehension of the majority. Because try to understand the Indian situation, and that is why in many writings I will come to that particular point a little later. The Indian democracy, it has been identified in a very peculiar manner by many authors. Okay, because if we look into the Shah Banu case, the way one particular community received the petals from one political party, it is quite normal, because it is the Newton's third law. Okay, for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. Okay, now obviously if there is any left-wing political party, in order to oppose the idea of the left-wing political parties, there will be some sort of right-wing political parties. Now that is why I am not here, rather none of us, we are here to carry forward the ideology of left or right. Rather, as a student of constitutional law, I am here to carry forward the ideology of the constitution itself. So from this particular perspective, the measuring rods are there. For example, here Shubhanshu Mishra mentioned that right now democratic crisis exists when all the three organs sometimes exceed their powers and interference in the other organs. Yes, to some extent, it is. Yes, it is true to some extent, but at the same time, I think the in a welfare state, the power of the government, you can't keep it in a watertight compartment. And there are areas, that is when some powers, some organs, they will overlap or they will interfere into the activities or the power of the another organ. And obviously, in order to determine whether it is constitutionally permissible or not, we have to look into the constitutional provisions. But yes, sometimes it may happen. For example, if the legislature or the if the legislature try to undermine the supremacy or the independency of the judiciary, then obviously it is a problem. In a similar situation, if the judiciary try to undermine the authority of the parliament, obviously it is a problem. Now, the ultimate test, so for the this democracy in its true sense is concerned, it is the free and the fair election. Okay, and not only the free and fair election, it should not be free and fair only in paper, rather it must be accepted by the common people as a free and fair election. For example, in West Bengal, for the last 5 years, we have seen in the local bodies election, according to the government, according to the election commission, the election is very much free and fair without any disturbance, etc., etc. But at the ground level, the people whom we are there, we know that how the elections are being conducted. Okay, so if elections are not free and fair, okay, then the voters will not expect the results. Whatever may be the result. Okay, because I think all of you know that after 2014 and after the by-election, the different state legislative election, or even after 2019, some people raised their apprehension about the genuinity or the working efficacy of the electronic voting machine, EVM. Now, what happened? Maybe there was some sort of what to say, that is misinformation, or the procedure was not quite transparent. That is why for some people, that election result, it was not accepted. It is quite logical to assume that if the elections are not free and fair, and rigging and malpractice have taken place, then the ruling party should always win, and it is more powerful than the opposition. But similar in our neighboring country, in Bangladesh, for the last two times the elections are happening in the same way. And that has been observed not by the independent writer or the news report or even by some international agencies, but the election is not free and fair. Now, what does it mean? That if the election is not free and fair, then how you can expect that the ruling party, they will follow the constitutional principles? Now, while asking this question about the test, I must look into the another aspect, or another side of the democracy. That is, what does democracy imply? What does the democracy imply? Democracy, in its literal sense, don't put any normative ideology or the norms therein. Actually, the democracy implies that everyone in the country, irrespective of any criteria or any consideration, okay, incompetency or competency, is allowed to cast his vote, and his vote is to be considered as an important one. Okay, though the whole nation does not vote every time. What is the, if you look into the percentage of the voter turnout, okay, sometimes it is 62, 63, in some cases it is 80. That means some people, they remain absent, and it has been accepted by the court or by the legal system that right to vote also includes right not to vote. Okay, and that is why the nota option, it has been incorporated in the EVM system. Now, here I just want to make a point that the nota option actually, it implies the true meaning of the democracy. That when I don't believe in the political ideology, or when I have no such affiliation to any political party, and when I look into the individual capacity or the quality of the candidate who is contesting the election, according to me, he is not suitable. According to me, he can't contribute to democracy. So, I must be given the authority. I must be given that particular right to not to cast the vote. Now, if I look into the, if I look into the, Indian democracy, if I make a survey of the Indian democracy from the very beginning in a very short manner, in continuing to my yesterday's discussion, here I want to mention that democracy, the working of the democracy in the Indian context, it must be seen not in isolation. Can you understand my point? That is what I am trying to say, that the democracy, yes, the concept of democracy or the working of the democracy, it must be analyzed, it must be considered, but it must not be taken in isolation. That is, we must take into the social peculiarities which exist in India. What are those social peculiarities? That is the caste, regionalism, language differences, religious pluralism. These are the differences. Okay, try to understand unity in diversity. Okay, maybe it is very nice to imagine such a situation, that is unity in diversity. Maybe it is a subject matter to write a poem by a poet. Even Rabindranath Tagore also wrote, okay, about the unity in diversity. But working of a constitution, okay, because the constitutional norms are quite fixed, okay, it is common. And when the society is diverse, now applying the similar norms, it is becoming a difficulty. Okay, the working is very much difficulty. The working of the document is very much difficult. So in a diverse society, there are social conflict, and sometimes those conflicts become quite violent. Okay, quite violent, and ultimately, sometimes it may happen that the constitution, even the constitution, has undergone some sort of changes. If we look into the amendment procedure of the Indian constitution, just imagine that what happened during emergency. Okay, what happened during emergency? That the constitution was amended to the effect that the election of the prime minister could not be challenged before the court of law, while the judicial review, it was declared as a basic structure of the constitution. Now this is happening, or rather this has happened in India. Now if we look into the discussion, or if we look into the idea of the democracy, then a democratic society, it can work only in a democratic political system. Let me repeat this thing, that the democratic society, okay, or we can imagine a democratic society when there is a democratic political system, or that is the vice versa. That means only a democratic society can have a democratic political system. So look at the society, forget about the constitution. Look at the society. Are we democratic? Forget about right to vote, right to participate in the formation, right to participation in the formation of the government. Forget about this thing. Look at the society. Look at the family level. Okay, are you democratic? Are we giving the equal space to all the people? I think in many respects you will find the answer no. No. For example, in our family system, it is the elder person, okay, and we follow his or her command. Now, so far the decision making is concerned, okay, perhaps there are many members of the family, they are just simply left out. Now we are discussing, academic discussion is going on, that what is the participation of the women in Indian democracy. Look at the family. At the family level, decision making, do we give equal recognition or the equal importance to the women? Are we ready to listen their voice? I think, okay, except a few family, okay, number of families are, because maybe because of the changes in the social structure, and because of the increasing rate of literacy or education, maybe some changes are there. But in my opinion, if you are not agree with that, please let me know. Basically, by virtue, or it is our inherent nature, okay, it is our inherent nature that basically we are undemocratic. For example, Aristotle, he said long back that human beings are basically selfish. Okay, human beings are basically selfish. Now, when we are basically selfish, it simply means we are very much undemocratic. Now, you are giving me a document known as Constitution, and in the Constitution, you are saying that just take it. It is a democratic Constitution and put it into effect. That is why it is very much difficult. We can say that the democracy is a way of life. Okay, and it is a life, and that will happen only after long and gradual process of evolving generations. Whatever it may be, if we look into the Indian history, except the emergency imposed by Gandhi, actually the entire period, the Constitution works very well, and the people of India, reposed our faith to the Constitution again and again. We reposed our faith to the Constitution, and we do it on a regular basis. After 5 years, every 5 years, we cast our vote, and this voting system, it is very much regulated or prescribed by the Constitution itself. So what does it mean? I repose my faith, and I repose my faith to the democratic principle. But when we look into the violent social conflict, okay, I must say violent political conflicts, then the Indian Constitution can also be discussed. That is, the Indian democracy can also be discussed from the viewpoint of Indian paradox. Now, the democracies, okay, the democracies, it is an idea. It is an idea that in a democracy, the power is in the hand of some people who are quite sensible towards the people against whom the power will be exercised. And if we look into the broader idea of political democracy, then the political democracy, the idea of political democracy, it has no meaning at all in the absence of social democracy. Just a few minutes back, I tried to look into this scenario. At the society level, okay, believe me, not as a teacher or not as a thing, sometimes I feel that we people, all the times we blame the politicians. Okay, as an individual at the society level, have I ever judged myself? It is not only that the officials, the government officials, they are not doing their work. It is also true at our personal level. Okay, ultimately, it is some sort of social evil. Yesterday I mentioned that the politicians are not from the heaven. Believe me, they didn't enter into any contract with anyone that I will remain 100% honest throughout my life. Even in absence of any constitutional oath, you may tell or you may say that, sir, they have taken the oath of the Constitution. At our individual personal level, we have taken so many oaths in front of our parents. But we are not doing our duty. So in absence of social democracy, especially when the society is very much caste ridden, okay, there is a difference between high and low. There is a difference between rich and poor. There is a difference between haves and haves not. Then how the democracy will work? the political democracy will work. Social democracy, in the term social democracy, it implies the provisions for the equal opportunities to all members of the society or all section of the society. In this sense, the social democracy or equal opportunities for all is a prerequisite to the democracy. Should I repeat? That social democracy is the prerequisite to the true democracy. Now, if I ask, have we achieved social democracy? Are we equal? Do we have equal opportunities? I think your answer will be no. Your answer will be no. Now, these are the very traditional concept of democracy. But believe me, from the Indian perspective, or if we look into the Constitution of India, we traveled a lot, and am I audible? Am I audible? Please let me know, am I audible? Okay, thank you very much. That we traveled a lot, and it is not like the Western concept of democracy. Rather, while framing in the Constituent Assembly debate, if we look into the Constituent Assembly debate, you will find that we tried to form, or we tried to build up a form or a notion of democracy which is quite different, I must say unique, in comparison to the traditional and modern concept of democracy. For example, Gandhi, he went beyond the traditional definition of democracy, because in case of traditional idea of democracy, it lays much emphasis on the structure of the political machinery rather than developing techniques of action. Okay, it looks into the how the doctrine of separation of power will work. Okay, what would be how the power will be determined, etc., etc. But Gandhi lays much emphasized on the techniques to achieve, and he always accepted the technique of discussion and debate. Okay, that brings some sort of participative element. Okay, it is not like that. That is why we expect from our parliamentarians that rather than boycotting the parliament, okay, they should participate in the discussion. They should debate. That is the participatory democracy. Now, it gives some sort of faith to the common man. Gandhi, in the different writings, it is mentioned that Gandhi suggested that the event of any constitutional breakdown, protest through the demonstration and extra constitutional methods of civil disobedience is to be followed, and only the mass or the common people who are very much aware, they can do it. Now, unless and until the people are aware, they are very much concerned, then how this can be done? The second thing, Gandhi lays down much emphasis on compromise rather than competition. Actually, this you will find in the idea of the cosmopolitanism or the multiculturalism. Okay, this is a subject. These are the topic which may be taught to you later. That is, we are living in a pluralistic society. It is a multiculturalism. Now, the state should not be treated as a melting pot. In order to survive in a pluralistic society or a society which is multiculturalistic, multiculturalism is there, you need not to relinquish your own idea or own philosophy. Rather, you can follow, you can profess, propagate, and practice your own idea, own religion, and you can be a part of the same nation or the same community. And that is the concept of we, the people of India. I may be a Muslim, okay, there is no need to relinquish my own religion, own belief, become a part of that we, the people of India. And that is why Gandhi emphasized on that is the compromise. It is a participatory, it is the willingness to adjust or to accommodate. And why we have to do that? Because we have a history. Our history, what our history shows, we fought for the long times and we fought for everything. That is why, in order to avoid these conflicts, the concept of sacrifice or the concept of compromise has been taken or emphasized by Gandhi so far the Indian democracy is concerned. Not only that, it that in a democracy, why the Indian democracy is quite different? Why the idea of majoritarianism? It should be avoided. This particular discussion, it was made by the Gandhi himself, and he said that rather he laid emphasis on the decision of the majority. He says that yes, I agree that in a democracy the majority, the decision of the majority will be. But Gandhi was deeply conscious or deeply worried about the tyranny of the majority. Tyranny of the majority. And that is why he always talked about the the democracy based on partnership. And according to him, a democracy based on partnership works very well in a plural society. Now, after having the discussion, this particular discussion, if we look into the working of the Indian Constitution, the democracy in India, and if we particularly look into the Indian scenario, or if we discuss the concept of democracy from the Indian context just after the election of 2014, I must say that as a scholar or as a student of law, we must be neutral. We must be neutral. We must not be preoccupied of any particular opinion. But unfortunately, it is not practicable. Because the human mind cannot be compared with a white sheet of paper. We are very much biased. We are biased towards some person. We are very much biased towards something. We are very much biased to some ideology. So, human mind cannot be compared with a white sheet of paper. while giving the justification about the topic, Gautam mentioned one thing, that is some rational people. Now, who is a rational people? Prashant Bhushan is rational or Shashi Tharoor is rational? If Prashant Bhushan, Shashi Tharoor, they are rational, are we trying to say Amit Shah is irrational? Who is a rational person? Gautam? Are you there, Gautam? Any one of you, would you like to answer? If Gautam is not there, I don't know. Maybe any one of you? Any one of you? Who is a rational person? Because according to Gautam, some or few rational person, they are saying, or according to them, that there is a crisis of democracy. Okay. Now my question is that who is a rational person? Is there anyone? Hello, am I audible? Okay, Raga Pandey. You just you can turn on your microphone and you can tell me. Yeah, rational or irrational depends upon the individual understanding on a particular. So it is not objective. Okay, very good. Any other idea? Any one of you?
Hello, sir. Again,
Yeah,
Gautam here.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
rational person can be anyone who applies his thought process before casting his vote or choosing his representative. Like my statement was connection with relation to the democratic process. So suppose yesterday you said that the a particular party promised to provide free vaccination in a particular state if they came to power. Now, my rationality would be that is it even feasible? Is it not a mere promise to get your attention? Because as a state or as federal structure, every state is equal to be a bias.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
rationality, that is a mere political, and if the vaccine is not before the election and the same party goes into Bengal election next year, they will repeat the same statement that we will provide you with the free vaccine. So the rationality depends on the person. Are we falling into the trap or we are applying our brain? That can be the rationality of an individual.
Okay. Sakshi also mentioned a person who can make informed decision. Okay. Now,
So
yeah.
can I? Yeah, I would like
Yeah,
to add that some, like, according to what Gautam sir said, that we have our ideologies. So people
yeah,
generally tend to base, like, they tend to make a conviction, like they have a strong belief that I will vote for Congress or I will vote for BJP, no matter
okay.
what work like that the party is doing. So they build a strong conviction, and that is irrational on their part. So, yeah,
Okay.
yes, sir. So, just adding on to that.
Okay. And now, now let me, uh, just I want to ask all of you to go back your uh, classes on in relation to law of torts. Remember that you have been taught one particular chapter, the negligence. Okay, and in the chapter of negligence, there are values. That is the duty to take care. Okay, duty to take care. A duty to take care is not the highest amount of care. Duty to take care as a reasonable and prudent man. Okay. Now, who is a reasonable and prudent man? Who is a rational human being? Try to understand that a rational human being, a reasonable, prudent man, actually a person who never commits any, okay, who never commits any wrong. For example, informed decision. I am making a decision on the basis of the information I have. On the other hand, Mr. B, he is making a decision on the basis of information he has. So, both are rational from their own perspective. Both are rational from their own perspective. Now, the rationality, the rationalities. Now, since I already mentioned that the human mind cannot be compared with a white sheet of paper, and since all of us, we are very much preoccupied with notion, okay, we are very much preoccupied with notion. Obviously, there are some problem. Obviously, there are some problem, and ultimately, we have to overcome this problem. Now, when we want to discuss this particular idea, okay, this particular idea that the democracy is in crisis or not, we must try to be rational, and this rationality, it must be the real one. That means having sufficient information in hand. There is one very recent publications, by the anthropologist Angana P. Chatterjee and Thomas Blom, that is the Majoritarian State, how Hindu nationalism is changing India. This is the title of the book. And in the book, the political scientist, the Christopher Jefferlot, make an elaborate analysis of the socio-cultural and the political changes that the country has undergone or witnessing post the BJP sweeping victory in the year 2014. Now, this is a book collection of 21 essays. Okay. Now, if when I have gone through this book, actually, I found that this is a particular work intends to find out the loopholes of the present government and try to find out that what new are happening, and they try to discuss those new things from the legal perspective or the political perspective. That is the perspective of political science. But after reading and after trying to understand what they are trying to say, it comes to my mind that everything is new. Even if you want, you can't go back 50 years back. The era of Rajiv Gandhi was very good, and Narendra Modi's era is very bad. Even if it is true, no one of us, we can put ourselves into that particular era. So in a society, human society, which is a very progressive one, what are happening each and every day, those are new, and we are going through some sort of new experiences. So majoritarian state, according to this particular author, that majoritarian state, as rightly rightly mentioned by Gautam, that the majoritarian state, they always try to find out, or they always try to explore the idea of some sort of nationalism, and they try to relate to it with some ideology. It may be the religious ideology, or it may be the political ideology, or it may be of some sort of social values or the social norms. So there is a criticism, actually, the people who are saying that there is a crisis of the Indian democracy in the modern context, more specifically after 2014, they are saying, or they are accusing, because of the wave of Hindu nationalist ideology. Now the question is that, is there any such thing which is called the Hindu nationalist ideology? Just try to understand, there was one such criticism even against Trump, that the last time Trump won election in USA on the basis of the nationalism. Okay, and this nationalism, it has been diluted, or it is added with some sort of religious ideology, then obviously it may cause some sort of threat to the democracy. Because as at the very beginning of today's lecture, I mentioned that out of 10%, 7% belongs to a particular religion. So I am not attaching the common people or the mass with the idea of nationalism only. Rather, I am trying to dilute the idea of nationalism with religion, if it is so. Because I am no one to say that yes, exactly this is happening, but I am trying to give you a feedback of the existing literature on this particular aspect. Now, what are the socio-economic factors which may be affected by this type of majoritarianism? It is, majoritarianism, or the majoritarian and authoritarian. Actually, these two tendencies, these are the tendencies. Whereas the democracy is a value, majoritarian or the authoritarian, these are the tendencies. These are not values. Okay. These arise as a response to the deep economic crisis. Actually, it happened. It happened, for example, during COVID-19. During COVID-19, when we raised the slogan that is "Go for local," perhaps it is quite connected with nationalism. And this idea of nationalism is being grown up when the country is going through some sort of economic crisis. But truly speaking, the recent political history throughout the world, for example, Donald Trump, Viktor Orban, Rodrigo Rowe, Brexit, all these things happened during the times of steady economic progress. What does it mean? That means that only in economic crisis the nationalism will grow. The matter is not like that. For example, in the 2014 or the 2019, if we say that the present time there is some sort of economic slowdown, then at that point of time there was no such issue. So, if we look into the Indian political history, that during 1990s, during 1990s, the right-wing political parties in India, they harnessed a wave of rising expectations and aspirations. And it was started during 1990, and this was accelerated under the UPA government. And ultimately it manifested in the election result of 2014, which also resulted to some sort of Islamophobic and cultural and physical violence against Muslim as well as Adivasi, Dalits and other marginal communities. At the same time, it is to be noted that the way the time for the political violence against minority occupy the mainstream media, in many cases, maybe in many cases, the mainstream media fails to cover a similar type of political violence or the incident against the member belonging to majority community. It is my addition at this point. Now, generally speaking, the rise of majoritarian politics, it is always creates some sort of anarchy, and it goes against the ethos of the constitutionalism, because the constitution itself, it says that that it is a secular country, but a nation where there is a deep structural inequality, I am repeating, that is, there is a deep structural inequality, hierarchy, disgust, mistrust and enmity among the caste and cultural lines, then this majoritarianism is an enemy, because ultimately this will result a situation where the principle of constitutionalism may lost its value. In last year, one lecture was delivered by Professor Patnaik, that is Prabhat Kumar Patnaik. He is a prominent Marxist economist, and he is an author, good author, and he delivered one lecture, that is the democracy versus majoritarianism, and he, in his lectures, he tried to explain that majoritarianism, the concept of majoritarianism, it can be a constructed idea, that means we are constructing, though there is no majority and minority. For example, there are some community whose number is quite low in comparison to the Muslim community in India, but they are never considered as a minority, because in the name of minority we always say, we always identify a particular group of people belonging to a particular religion. But if we construct this minority, there may be a linguistic minority also. So you know, in a majoritarian society, okay, actually in Mr. Patnaik, he tried to identify that how the majoritarianism seeks to limit the right of the minority when the majoritarianism is there. And majoritarianism, it results to the increase of intolerance, dissent, violence, or the exclusion to the vulnerable group. Now, intolerance, this is a very recent, I'm not saying it is a very recent word, but the word is being frequently used in the recent times, maybe because of the rise of majoritarianism. Now, the problem of majoritarianism, Hindutva, the idea of Hindutva or the majoritarianism, if we say that majoritarianism is the Hindutva majoritarianism, then we must ask this question once again, that are we trying to constructing the idea of majoritarianism, or this majoritarianism was almost there in the name of democracy? Because majoritarianism ultimate moves towards fascism. Many people, they said, they label our prime minister as a fascist, okay, or some political party, they say that Indian government or the present central government, they are running a majoritarian fascism, because ultimately it was some sort of formidable change in the Indian democratic system. And the change in the Indian democratic system, maybe they are apprehending because of the Hindutva and hyper nationalism. Okay, but if academically, if you ask me that majority and minority, okay, it is nothing but a political construction. Some political party construct the idea of minority. Some political party, in order to counter this minority, construct the idea of minority. And by way of doing that, ultimately they want to get power. Now here, the problem is that majoritarianism, okay, at the apparent level, it is the rule by majority. But it sounds very similar to the democracy, because the democracy is also like that. But if we want to thrive for a democracy, because few minutes back I mentioned that democracy is a value, it is essential that the ideas and the principle of secularism is there. And here is a problem, that the Hindu hyper nationalism or the Hindu majoritarianism, if it is so, then obviously it is not acceptable, because we always sought for democracy, and in democracy the secularism, in it is an embedded idea, and the idea between that there is a clear segregation between the state and the religion. Okay, without this, democracy can't survive. Unfortunately, it is not only the state, okay, that is the center, but even at the state level, some political parties, they always try to patronize to some community on the basis of the religion. Now, if Hindu majoritarianism is bad, then the majoritarianism in relation to any other religion is also bad. At the same time, if there is a threat or if there is an apprehension, or if the majority of the society fears from the minority, that problem also needs to be addressed. So, in order to conclude, I want to say that in the democracy's metamorphosis into the majoritarianism is a real danger. Under the rule of capital, especially in a present phase of neoliberalism, that government by rich is another problem. Okay, for example, at all the times we are cursing Ambani and Adani, don't know why, or I know why, but today we have no time to discuss it. Sometimes doing business in India is seen as a crime. We always curse some political parties, we mean some political parties always curse the Ambani and Adani. Okay, but obviously it is also a problem. This is known as the plutocracy. Plutocracy means the government by the rich. Now, nationalism, or so-called the problem, that is majoritarianism in the name of democracy, it is always to be under scrutiny, because the practice of democracy, it has its internal tension. It has its internal tension. Now, what are those? If you ask me that, what are those internal tension? It is the tension is that who are the demos? Who are the people for who will make the law and who will apply the law? Okay. During the lockdown, we saw that how the people, the demos, they were simply excluded. Apparently, government did not consider or failed to take into consideration their plight. And obviously, this is a tension of democracy. The next tension, that what do the demos do? That means if the democracy is not working, if the democracy there is a problem, then what initiatives can be taken by the demos, by the people? And that is a point. And here there is a question: if the law is bad, are the citizen still bound to obey the law? There are two observations, two types of theory. According to Socrates, even the law itself is immoral. There is no other option but to follow that. But there is another argument that citizens have no obligation to follow the law, which is immoral. And the third internal tension is coming from the ordering of the people. That means how the law and orders are being maintained. Okay, that this is the law and order and the demand of the state. Now, if you ask me that that what is the tension? Yes, there are some tension. and the tension or the crisis are there because of the long standing problem between the society. Okay, because we have not been able to achieve equality in its true sense, and that is why, and the society is very much diverse. Okay, so still we are facing some problem that uh, you know, even it was admitted by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, in his final address, that we have the constitution now, we have got the constitution, but it is going to be a challenge to bring the constitution in the reality. There is no problem, there is no doubt that India is a democratic country. By principles, we have a democracy. But how to put the democracy in its reality? It is very much depend upon the mass of the people, and obviously upon the leadership of the country. Because in India, the democracy is very much leadership centric rather than people centric. Whereas, it was supposed to be quite opposite, that the democracy should always be people centric rather than the leadership centric. So obviously, as a student of law, we can say that except the period of emergency, the democracy in India works. Still, it is working. Obviously, when something works, even in case of machine, when it works, it may create some sort of huge noise. Then we have to recheck it. We have to file it. Okay, and we must supplement it. So our constitution, it provides sufficient flexibilities. If we really want, or if we think, if we really think that there are some problem or there are some issues, then obviously the constitution provides the mechanism, and following the principles of constitutionalism, we can bring the necessary changes. But yes, I shouldn't say, or rather I am not agree to say that there is a huge crisis of democracy. I am quite convinced that some things are going on, some things are happening, which create some sort of doubts, or cast some sort of doubt upon the free and fair and participatory democracy as the founder of the constitution they have imagined. With this, I am concluding my discussion. Now I am ready to your question. Any one of you, do you have any question? Any question?
If you have any question, while typing, because it will take some time, directly switch on your mic and you can ask.
Yeah.
Okay, so through these ideologies, whether be it right wing uprise or be it left wing, so is there any theoretical edge of which a political group is, or this is just mere for election? So what is it that we are trying to achieve? Is there anything? Is there any in ideological thing?
Ideological thing, obviously, it is there. Okay, so far, I can understand. Uh, we have a constitution, we have a written constitution, and the promises we have made, that is the equality of justice, socio-economic and political justice. But the fact is that that majority of people in India, they are not getting their minimum things for their daily livelihood. And obviously, when there is some sort of expectation of the citizens from the government, for a poor people who is residing in a panchayat area, okay, for him or her, the panchayat pradhan is the government. Okay, he doesn't understand all this democracy, republic, and all these things. Blah blah blah. He is not very much concerned. Now, when this person he is not getting the adequate opportunity, or when the forest people are being evicted, okay, the people who are living in the forest, and the forest becomes the source of their livelihood, they are being evicted by the government order for the purpose of development. At that point of time, they are they are thinking that how the democracy is working, because I have not taken into consideration while make decision. So theoretical point is there, okay, or some sort of doctrinal. Actually, now this era, the constitution, how the constitution is working, we are focusing much more on this, rather than any theoretical imperative. Forget about the theoretical imperative. For example, John Rawls, who imagined a society that all of us we will be equal, all of us we will enjoy the rights equally. It will never happen. Should we wait for that? No. That's why when you are not in a position to ensure equality, you must go for to minimize the inequality. Okay. If you can't ensure equality, you must reduce the inequality, and that point is to be taken into consideration.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay,
Do we
any
have any
other
more
question, anyone?
Okay, so you devoted your two with us, so thank you. And I hope we will continue this academic discourse in future as well. The society will be looking forward to host you some other time as, and we will continue with academic collaboration. I also thank you on behalf of, he was not able to join due to some issues. He may be calling you in.
Okay,
So he
thank
just
you,
informed
Gautam.
me that
Thank
thank you so much.
you, Gautam.
See you all.
Yeah, thank you.